without the bipartisan support he was looking for. The talk of goodwill and reaching across the aisle. Where's that music, by the way? Can I please cue the love music? Because it really just makes this story better. Mostly nowhere to be found. Nobody's feeling the love in Washington these days. So is this a sign of things to come? Let's ask Representative Robert Aderholt, a Republican from Alabama and a member of the House Appropriations Committee, and Representative Joe Sestak, a Democrat from Pennsylvania and member of the House Oversight and Reform Committee. Gentlemen, thank you so much for talking to us.
Good to be here, Julie.
I was going to try to serenade this segment a little bit. Maybe you two would feel the love. We can get you two in the mood. Is that even possible? I mean, Congressman Aderholt, you know, what happened to the bipartisanship that President Obama promised?
Well, you know, in one sense, there was bipartisanship on this legislation. There were 7 Democrats that actually voted against the legislation, and there were no Democrats, of course, that on the Senate side that bolted. But on the House side, there was a little bit of bipartisanship. But and all kidding aside, you know, when the president came up to the House Republican Conference, which was about 2 weeks ago, and he first talked to us, the legislation was already being written as he spoke. I thought it was a very nice gesture that the president came to the House conference. He came and spoke to us, spent about an hour or so with the Republican members of Congress, answered questions, and you know, like I said, I commend him for doing that. The problem was that the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader on the Senate side were already working on this bill, and it was ready to go to the floor the next day. So anything that we had discussed that day would not have changed anything from that point on.
Representative Sestak, you know, the economy is still in a panic, as you point out. People are losing their jobs, and of course the health care that comes along with it. The housing crisis, which, as you also point out, was the immediate cause of the crisis, starting with the banks. So how can we cycle and stop this cycle, I suppose, from continuing, and what would get the Democrats and Republicans to come together on this?
I think it's unfortunate, but the deeper the crisis gets, I'm sure the closer we will come. And I do think Mr. Obama reached out and tried a bipartisan effort, and I think that was healthy. Should we do more, even on the Democratic side in the House? Yes. I think we could have compromised a bit more and put more of the tax relief in. All that said, if this bill had not passed, all the modeling, set ideology aside, we would have lost over 3 million jobs by the end of this June. And we would be at over 12% unemployment by the end of this year. And as you know, Julie, in an economic downturn, 11% marks a Great Depression. Now, what do we need to do? What we need to do is to get the TARP money out there, the $350 billion that has to soak up those toxic mortgage securities and begin to give clarity to the pricing so private investment is attracted. We got to stop hemorrhaging the jobs, which this bill did that we just passed in the House side and the Senate. And finally, we've got to get a comprehensive housing bill that begins to lower principal and forgive it in order not to have, by the end of this year, 18 million Americans underwater with their mortgage.
Congressman
Those 3 pillars are absolutely critical.
You say House Republicans know that we're in a serious recession, but this so-called stimulus bill is simply a long wish list of big government spending that won't work. So what are you saying here, that Representative Sestak right now is telling us something that will not work, that the Democrats, their ideas don't work?
Well, the thing about it is, what it has been proven that the way that the Republicans wanted to go with this bill, which was to include tax cuts, would have cost half the amount that the stimulus legislation is now costing, and it would create twice as many jobs. That's the estimate anyway. And as you know, we're talking about $1 trillion that is the debt that we will have from this piece of legislation. And I have a 9-year-old and I have a 4-year-old little boy, and you know, they will be having that debt on them for many years to come. So I think we could have accomplished the same thing, but we could have increased more jobs, but yet had it with half the cost.
All right, Representative Sestak, I just want to give you the final word and your final word in reaction to him.
The final word is that we know that we are hemorrhaging jobs. The governors are laying off educators and health care workers because they can't pay their Medicare plan. That is why we needed the investment out there. Second, we know if we put money into construction, you get a $1.60 boost in the GDP for every dollar you put in. If you give a corporation a tax cut, you get about 40% increase in GDP. Now, Businesses are hurting. Let's give them the tax relief so they don't lay off workers. But we also know, according to the modeling, that every dollar into an investment, and the government is the only institution that can borrow at a very low rate right now because people are sticking their money in Treasury securities. Let's borrow until we get through this, because if we don't, and more are laid off, then what we're going to have, Julie, unfortunately, is greater debt, because the income will not be there for them to pay Governor Rendell and other governors their taxes needed in order to not lay more people off because they can't pay the Medicaid share to hospitals, and you can have an ongoing cycle. That's why this bill was an A- when it left the House. Unfortunately, became about a B- with the Senate's input. But it's needed, and that's why I voted for it.
We got to get going.
Thank you.
But, gentlemen, thank you so much. Representative Joe Sestak and Representative Robert Aderholt, thank you very much for talking to us.
I'm not feeling the love there.
I know. I was trying to get him in the mood. I guess I failed. I tried.
And it's Valentine's Day, as Julie continuously points out.